For our next economic aggregate, we're going to be taking a look at unemployment. So first, we have to start with what does it mean to be unemployed? Because it doesn't mean just not having a job. So if you're employed, it means you work at least 1 hour a week. And yes, you must actually be reporting that to the government. If you're unemployed, you're not working, but you are actually looking for work. That's a key part of it. You have to be looking for work. If you're not looking for work, you are not considered unemployed. You're considered not part of the labor force. The labor force is made up of the employed and the unemployed together. So a lot of times you'll see people criticize um, the unemployment rate, which is the number of unemployed workers divided by the labor force multiplied by 100, because it doesn't give a full picture, because it doesn't talk about how many people left the labor force altogether. So the labor force participation rate is also important to take in consideration when you're looking at this stuff, and that is the amount of people in the labor force, so the employed and the unemployed, divided by the entire population age 16 and older. Now, there is some discrepancies here in terms of certain states will let you work at a younger age. Some refuse work at even 16, but 16 is generally the accepted measure because that is usually when you can start working more full-time hours and be more of a productive member of a team, because any younger than that, you're in school and you might only be working seasonally. So the significance of the unemployment rate, it is the indicator of economic opportunity, or employment opportunity, I should say. Um, it's essentially, can people who want to find a job find a job? And if you're able to, then your unemployment rate is low. If you're not able to, then your unemployment rate is higher. Now, as I previewed a little bit on the last slide, the true level of unemployment is actually a little different because there are discouraged workers. Those are the people not counted in the labor force. So they're the people who no longer want to work because they're discouraged from even looking for a job. Usually they've been unemployed for so long that they've just given up. You also have underemployed. So these are people who are counted as employed, even though their skills aren't necessarily matched up to what they're doing. So if you have a doctor working at a supermarket, that person is employed, but they are very much underemployed. So it is a little bit of a give and take with this unemployment rate. In some cases, it can seem almost too low, but those jobs aren't necessarily good jobs. So if you have a very low unemployment rate, but everything is a minimum wage job, chances are you have a lot of people who are mismatched with their skill level. They're underemployed. And if you have a lower unemployment rate, but a low labor force participation rate, that means you likely have a lot of discouraged workers out there. Now, the way we tie growth to unemployment, generally speaking, if you have a higher rate of economic growth, higher real GDP, that usually results in lower unemployment rates. Usually. Now, we're going to talk about that sort of analysis a bit later, but generally speaking, if you have higher real GDP, you have lower unemployment rate, and vice versa. Well, to go back to this a little bit, the reason for that is if the economic growth, if the output, if that's GDP, it's your output. If that grows, usually it means that you need more people to do it. If your output growth has slowed, that means usually you need less people to do it. So that's sort of the connection there. Now, in a good month, about 4.5 million jobs are destroyed. So that means these businesses no longer exist. And that is caused by structural changes to the economy. So certain things are going to be more profitable, certain things are going to be less profitable. Certain jobs get replaced by machines, which then cause their own jobs to occur. This is what we call creative destruction. So your people who used to weave together fabric in order to make cloth, that job no longer exists. It was destroyed by the looms, automatic looms and automatic weavers that have came out in the 1800s. That is creative destruction. Now it's creative because one, it's creative to make those machines, but also there's a job now in making and maintaining those machines. So jobs are destroyed, jobs are created at the same time. So that's why about 4.5 million jobs are destroyed in a good month. So that's what we mean by creative destruction and frequent turnover. Now, what this means is we are always going to have a certain amount of structural unemployment in our system. So this can mean a few things. As I said, it can happen due to mismatches in skills of the laborers for the jobs that are available. So, in other words, your job was taken by a machine. You now no longer have the skills that are needed. So you need to be trained to do something else, or find a better match for your skills. Uh, or it could be a an issue where the going wage is too high. If the going wage is too high, then you have essentially a surplus in the market. So you have a greater quantity supplied than quantity demanded, and that difference is going to be your structural unemployment. Now, some cases this can be caused by just inefficiencies in the market. It can be caused by unions forcing an increased wage. It can be caused by efficiency wages, which are essentially businesses paying people higher wages um, to retain them. It can be caused by minimum wage, although that is all of these things have been somewhat debated over the years. Uh, Wage stickiness, which is a Keynesian concept, which is for the most part held up, which is the idea that people don't really like seeing their wages fall, and they will resist a pay decrease. They'd almost rather get laid off than see a pay decrease. So wage stickiness essentially says they keep their wages higher, and therefore causing some level of structural unemployment. It is also part of the seasonal unemployment. So if you're in the construction industry and it's the dead of winter, usually this means that you have less job opportunities, and a lot of things shut down in the winter when it comes to outdoor jobs. So that would be seasonal unemployment, which you could relate back to the idea of mismatch of skills for the jobs available at the moment. This is just a little bit closer graph, so you can see the structural unemployment, the way it plays out, essentially is as a surplus. You have a greater quantity supplied than demanded, the difference between the two being the structural unemployment. Frictional unemployment is also something that's never going to go away. We're always going to have a certain level of frictional unemployment, and we're always going to have a certain level of structural unemployment in our economy. Frictional unemployment is when people are voluntarily leaving their jobs to find new ones. So if I quit my job tomorrow, uh, I will be frictionally unemployed because I voluntarily left. If I move and have to find a new job, that is frictional unemployment. This also is the category when you are trying to find your first job or re-enter the workforce. So a parent who is out on paternity or maternity leave coming back to the workforce uh, and trying to find a job after being gone for a number of years, they're going to be frictionally unemployed, re-entering the workforce. As you graduate high school or graduate college and you're looking for your first job, you will be frictionally unemployed as you are now entering the workforce. Now, together, the frictional and structural unemployment is the natural rate of unemployment. This is expected. We always expect a certain amount of natural unemployment. Now, you can change the natural rate of unemployment over time. Certain things do help with it. For instance, better job search capabilities that came around with the internet greatly reduced frictional unemployment because it's much easier to find jobs. But sort of the staticness of our workforce when it comes to things like coal mining and jobs like that, when people became unemployed there, structurally unemployed, they had a hard time finding jobs because we didn't actively train those people into new jobs. We just sort of said, okay, you're free, go find a new job. But people don't have the supports to really do that. So that actually made structural unemployment a bit worse in those areas, especially. But there is always expected a certain amount of both of those, and that is natural rate of unemployment. So if everything's in equilibrium, if our entire economy is where it should be and we're humming along fine, we will still have a certain level. We don't know exactly what the natural rate of unemployment is. Um, it's sometimes thought to be as high as 5%. Some economists are putting it lower, closer to 4%. But the vast majority say somewhere between 3.5% and 5% is sort of going to be our natural rate of unemployment. Cyclical unemployment, that is the one that is not natural. It comes from the business cycle, and that is sort of the bad unemployment. So this is when we're in a recession and people have to be laid off quickly because businesses are failing or businesses can't support them anymore. So cyclical unemployment is the one coming from the business cycle when we have downturns. The actual rate of unemployment, if you have to add it all up, it's the natural rate of unemployment, which is frictional and structural, plus cyclical. So it's all three of those together get you your actual unemployment rate. Now, as I already said, you can have changes in your natural rate of unemployment, and this can come from labor force characteristics, aging population, bringing new populations into the labor force, things like that. Changes in labor market institutions. So, as I said, the internet coming around, giving us better ways of searching for jobs, roles of unions, setting wages, things like that. And changes in government policies, subsidies for certain things, subsidies for hiring unemployed. Some economists say more generous unemployment benefits could cause greater frictional unemployment, but that's not necessarily always a bad thing because increased frictional unemployment might just mean that those people are attempting to find jobs that are better suited for their skills. And even with structural unemployment, it may prolong the amount of structural unemployment that's going on, but those people might be able to get trained in something else if they don't have as pressing time. But that is something that's definitely up for debate. And that is all we have to know about measuring and calculating the unemployment rate.